называется распространением в России евреев. Когда проклятая царская монархия доживала...
For today's historians, Lenin's seizure of power and creation of the Soviet Union seemed to come out of nowhere. Back in his day, onlookers were appalled by this totally new theoretical form of government, which clashed with the strong capitalism in the United States. Many would ask how Lenin came up with the ideas to create this new form of Marxism. The answer can be found by examining his youth. Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, as he was known in his day, faced a time when he believed it absolutely necessary to revolutionize the Tsarist government in Russia. To do this, he reformed the traditional laws of socialism in order to create an ideal revolution. Lenin was born into a nice middle-class family in 1870. Soon after his father's death, Lenin's brother, who was enrolled in St. Petersburg University, got involved with Narodnaya Volya, a Marxist group that promoted terrorist attacks. He and a few other students were caught planning the assassination of the Tsar and were executed.
And the fact that his older brother had been executed by the Tsarist regime meant that, one, it probably enhanced his hostility, his antipathy towards the Tsarist government.
Lenin was deeply affected by this. Many colleges denied his entry, fearing that he would take his brother's path, and neighbors ostracized his family. Finally, he was accepted to the Simbirsk University, which, after a single protest he attended, expelled him. He spent the next 4 years at home and adopted a socialist point of view. After many pleas, Lenin was accepted into the St. Petersburg University in 1890 as an external student. After finishing his studies, he became a lawyer, then went home, but soon returned to the city. There, Lenin met and learned many other Marxists like himself. Soon, however, they were arrested on claims of revolutionary activity. In 1897, the group was exiled to Siberia. What seemed like a frozen concentration camp to most Russians was a retreat for Vladimir, where he claimed that all he did was swim, fish, and take long walks. In Siberia, Lenin joined a more advanced Marxist party called the Social Democrats. In Lenin's own words, social democracy leads the struggle of the working class, not only for better terms of the sale of labor, but for the abolition of the social system that compels the propertyless to sell themselves to the rich. Thinking that he needed to expand his understanding of Marxism, Lenin set off on a long trip in Europe. He realized that he needed to become more popular to make himself more influential. But how? The answer lay in agitation.
If there were opponents, they were made for him to cut down by any means necessary. I think his agitational approach is a reflection of that overall political strategy.
Revolutionaries would publish newspapers and write speeches for both the proletariat, the workers, and the intelligentsia, the educated students. Though both were on opposite extremes of the class system, they were all key to a successful revolution. The intelligentsia would lead the workers through the revolution. Lenin didn't believe proletariats were capable of leading, a difference from classic Marxism.
He saw them as sitting on the sidelines and having a first instinct of accommodation, not springing into action.
It's his belief, it's really incorporated in a very famous sentence in what is to be done. To allow the workers to lead the movement is like allowing the dog's tail to wag the dog's head.
According to Lenin, if the true leaders took power, then there would be a great revolution. Lenin, as an agitator, would drill support for the party into the people's heads and attack rival ideas. As Marxist Vera Sasulich put it, "You, Lenin, are a bulldog. You have a deadly bite." To further use the idea of agitation, Lenin established his own social democratic paper, called the Iskra, in which he incorporated agitation techniques. Most social democrats seem to agree upon the idea of direct democracy in Marxism. Lenin had other ideas. For this reason, he was much less popular than his fellow editors of the Iskra. When the leaders met at the Second Congress of Social Democracy in Switzerland, a compromise seemed impossible. Lenin was making things too difficult. His philosophies about party structure seemed unproductive and cruel to many of his peers. First, Lenin believed in strict military ranking in his party, which would prevent the proletariats from being represented.
Lenin is going to argue that there cannot be standard democracy in a social democratic party that is operating in Russia because of the difficult conditions, the penetration by the Okhrana, Tsarist secret police, and the generally very, very difficult and harsh position that party members would be in.
He then called for secrecy. Agitators would print their newspapers underground, and Marxist meetings would be held in secret locations. It was also a way to avoid arrest. Marxism was a highly illegal party. Third, he believed that only the small decisive body, called the Central Committee, should make the decisions so that mixed ideas would not develop. Finally, Lenin developed a highly unpopular tactic in which the party would have only a small group of active members, and admittance would be limited. Most leaders always believed that more was better, but Lenin changed this idea. He did it so that the party wouldn't be broken by the police. They were famous for planting spies into the meetings so that they could exploit the members.
If not the masses, so to speak, if not the workers, then who? And his answer was that he would find and train and recruit full-time professional revolutionaries who would be shaped and molded by his leadership.
Lenin also had no respect for the common people. Lenin's rivalry with other Marxist groups was increasing. Though they had tried to weaken Lenin's influence, he became stronger still.
After considerable debate and after the departure from that Congress of the Jewish Workers' Bund, when they walk out, Lenin's party is in the majority. The Russian word for majority is bolshinstvo, hence Lenin will take the name Bolshevik. The Russian word for minority is menshinstvo. Those who are in the minority will be referred to as Mensheviks.
He then held the Third Congress for his Bolsheviks, and he was overjoyed now that he had his own party. The Mensheviks were the more moderate form of the two. They believed in calm measures, more petitions, and fewer violent protests. They thought that they should wait until the time was right to change to socialism. The Bolsheviks, however, wanted a revolution as soon as possible. They believed in strong riots and had no regard for the law.
That he's willing to pursue ruthless and merciless means toward his end.
The Mensheviks, through peace, could not convince anyone to accept their ideas. The Bolsheviks were much more successful. For the next 16 years, Lenin traveled between Russia and Europe, incorporating his tactics into the Bolshevik soon-to-be Communist Party, who were falling behind from the majority they once had. One day, as Lenin was strolling with his wife in Europe, a fellow activist bumped into him on the way to an important meeting. The man notified Lenin that the Tsar's Duma, or parliament, had turned against him, and the first Russian Revolution was commencing. The group hurried to a cafe, where Bolsheviks and Mensheviks had come together to discuss the turn of events. However, the conversation gradually changed from a discussion on the revolution to an argument between the rival groups. Lenin left in a huff after things got out of hand. Following their leader, the Bolsheviks rose and left the meeting. A few days later, Lenin was heading to Russia by train. Lenin saw it was time to put all his plans into action. The Bolshevik seizure of power required a strong driving force. Without Lenin's hard work in reforming social democracy, that seizure would never have taken place.
Антисемитизмом называется распространение вражды к евреям. Когда проклятая царская монархия доживала свое последнее время, она старалась натравить темных рабочих и крестьян на евреев. Царская полиция в союзе с помещиками и капиталистами устраивала еврейские погромы. Ненависть измученных нуждой рабочих и крестьян